When we make notes in the results section of the worksheet, we're starting to think about what we know given the results of the study. Hence the fact I call this recording Expanding Knowledge. Obviously, we know the results will be in the results section, but you might have already noticed that section can be a little overwhelming to read. I've read a lot of articles, and sometimes it still feels like I'm reading a foreign language with a few hieroglyphics thrown in, and sometimes it seems like it'd be easier to understand the hieroglyphics. I don't want to discourage you from learning about statistics, but I also don't want you to get overwhelmed. One way to do that is to start by looking at the discussion, the first paragraph or two to be specific. As this paragraph from the APA Style Manual notes, the discussion should explain the results. Burton and King add another reason that the results section can be complicated. They aren't particularly straightforward about presenting the analysis of the variables related to their prediction. They actually start by talking about the content of the writing, which might be considered a manipulation check, but they go on to present the analysis more of the writing. The information related to the purpose and prediction are in the second paragraph of section 3.1 and in section 3.2. That's a long way of saying we might be able to save ourselves some frustration if we start by reminding ourselves of the purpose and then by looking at the first part of the discussion. In this case, we can definitely save ourselves some frustration. The information highlighted in green summarizes the results. Remember that Burton and King predicted that writing about intensely positive experiences, or IBEs, would result in enhanced positive mood after writing and decreased health center visits for illness. The first highlighted segment addresses the first portion of the hypothesis and indicates the hypothesis was supported. Writing about positive experiences was associated with enhanced positive mood. The following sentences add details related to that finding. The second portion of the hypothesis is addressed in a way that might be a little more confusing in the highlighted segment that says, "We did find the health buffering effects for writing about IPEs." If that did not jump out at you, you could have gathered the same idea from the other information I highlighted. Your notes in the summary of results section of the summary worksheet should include at least the information included in the purple box on this slide. Knowing the overall findings can make it easier to find the related analysis. Knowing that writing was related to mood, we can start skimming the results section. The first sentence of that section helps us know we can skip that information, but the word mood in the heading for section 3.1 signals we might find information there. When we get to the second paragraph, we see more about the mood variable. The highlighted portion explains more details about what they summarized in the discussion, and I drew arrows from that section of the text to the related portion of Table 1. The phrase, "the positive emotion condition showed higher positive effects," is reporting the fact that participants who wrote about positive experiences had an average mood score of 4.2, while those in the control condition had a mean of 2.83, and that was a significant difference statistically. The phrase, "no significant difference was found for negative affect," is represented by the fact that there was only a 0.09 difference in the scores for negative affect. We need to keep skimming to find the rest of the information, though, and the word health in the heading for section 3.2 signals we probably found it in that section. The analysis for this variable is more complicated, but the phrase I highlighted is the most direct support for the prediction, and hopefully relatively easy to understand. The goal of this section of the worksheet is to have enough information to know whether they supported their hypothesis and why or why not, or what they found related to the focus of the article. We don't usually need specific numbers or the results of specific analysis, but may want to have the phrases from the results section that relate to the summary and the discussion. If you haven't already done so, please pause this recording to open your files for the Burton and King article and add your notes about the results. The purpose of the Hurst article helps us know that we're looking for information about what they found about trends of student stressors. When we skim the discussion, the phrase, "the stressors reported by students in this review," signals that they're starting to talk about the results. And when we stop to read that sentence, we know that they found there were 8 major categories of stressors. With the information from the discussion, we can go back to the results to find more specific details about the 8 categories. When you go to that section, Table 2 might catch our attention before we see the stress themes heading. The details in the paragraphs about the themes can help add to our understanding of what those themes mean, but the information from the table is probably sufficient for our notes. I used a program to capture the table from the article, but you can also find the same information in the first few sentences of each of the paragraphs in the results, if that's easier for you. Now that you've learned about the process and seen my model, use the PDF file in the Hurst article to complete the variables section of that worksheet. Then look at Schiffrin and Nelson. It's a quantitative article, so you can use the strategies we learned about for Burton and King for that worksheet. Schiffrin and Nelson is pretty straightforward. The discussion even starts by reminding us of the purpose. The results are also pretty short. When we skim that, we get the idea that the first two sentences are just about the happiness measure. Then we see the sentence, correlations were also conducted to determine if happiness and stress were inversely related. And we know to read that a little more closely. They give us an example of how to report about it when there's something quirky in the data. Then they explain the findings in the phrase, all three measures demonstrated a negative linear correlation with stress. The rest of the information provides the related details, which won't be necessary for our notes. In some articles, the writing in the discussion section does not make it actually seem real clear, which means the authors and editors weren't consistent with APA style. It can also be tricky to find the related information in the results. Given that, it can be helpful to note that the authors sometimes use signal words or phrases when they present the statistical analysis in the results section. Using the find function in the electronic file allows you to search for those signal words, noted in this slide. Note that the find function will find those strings of letters within a larger word, so using predict will find references to predictions, and so forth. Hopefully, the strategy for thinking about the results makes it a little less overwhelming and helps you think about what we know from the article. It can be a little frustrating to realize we have pages of text that can be summarized in a couple sentences. Keep in mind, though, it's because we're reading with a specific purpose in mind. In addition, without all of that other information, we should question the credibility of the knowledge we can draw, as it provides the underlying logic. We might think of it as being a little bit like eating a banana. Sometimes the peel is heavy or as bulky as the part we eat, but we wouldn't want to eat the fruit if that peel was any less substantial. Similarly, we use that peel as an indicator of the quality of the fruit. We expect different things depending on the color and the texture. So, focusing on the purpose, goal, question, or hypothesis helps us peel away the information that's important and contributes to the quality of what we know, but isn't the takeaway message. Sometimes the authors summarize the information in the discussion in a way that makes it pretty straightforward to find the knowledge. Sometimes it's a little more tricky, like when the top of the banana doesn't want to break away. Then we can use the signal words to help us get to the knowledge.